It's never possible to predict the future when it comes to language. So any question about the future of language is actually a question about the way society, in the broadest sense, including, politics, economics, religion, culture, and so on, is going to change. I've got no ability to answer that question. All I can say is that the two main trends of the moment are going to continue. Global English, number one. Varieties of global English are going to continue to develop, and internet technology will continue to grow, with largely unpredictable linguistic consequences.
La migración suele dar lugar al bilingüismo y al trilingüismo y o multilingüismo. Una situación típica es la de la primera generación que va perdiendo rasgos de su primera lengua, la lengua de la familia, y adopta rasgos de la lengua del país de acogida, del nuevo entorno. La segunda generación, la de los hijos, está expuesta a la lengua de la familia y a la del país de acogida. Esta suele pasar a ser la lengua dominante, mientras la lengua de la familia es la lengua heredada. Esta contiene carencias que algunos lingüistas describen como conocimiento incompleto, noción muy discutida en el campo de la adquisición. El trilingüismo y o multilingüismo aparece si los padres hablan lenguas distintas, una de las cuales no coincide con la lengua dominante. En nuestros proyectos de adquisición de la Universidad de Hamburgo investigamos la fonología de la lengua heredada, que en Alemania es el castellano y en España el alemán, y la comparamos con la fonología de la lengua dominante, el alemán en Alemania y el castellano en España. Estas comparaciones han mostrado influencia de la lengua dominante a la heredada, pero también influencia de la lengua heredada a la dominante.
The question of the relation between phonology and syntax. Rethink phonology in syntactic terms. And I think nowadays the question would be, could you try to import minimalism into phonology in some strong sense?
And I think it's really important for people in the next 10 years to continue doing linguistic research on underdocumented and endangered languages. And many are unfortunately in danger of losing their last fluent speakers within this century, and many of them relatively soon. I think this kind of work is urgent, and it's important that linguists, when making theories about how language works, it's important that we're able to draw on data from as wide and a diverse set of languages as possible in order to understand what the range of possible variation in human languages is from every subfield of linguistics.
Within South America, I think we have a privilege there. We have all these languages that we need to work on.
En esta época, la cosa más importante en toda lingüística es la descripción de lenguas que todavía no han sido descritos, pero describir con documentación de cómo se habla naturalmente entre varios tipos de hablantes nativos.
I think that any topic is fine, provided you formulate a clear hypothesis and are able to connect this hypothesis to the whole enterprise of understanding how the process of language acquisition unfolds.
From my point of view, I think the most important things that can be done in the next 10 years are really establishing a rich empirical basis for our work. It's really important to document as many languages in depth. It means letting people talk, especially, a variety of genres, let them say what they want to say, how they say it, and especially a lot of conversation. In 10 years, we don't know what the hot topic is going to be. If we have really good documentation, we can look at the documentation to see those kinds of answers.
Is that at some point in the future, it will hopefully be possible for a typologist looking for a particular phenomenon, looking for a particular feature, to go straight to corpora, to go straight to documentation of discourse and find relevant examples without having to go through the intermediary of looking something up in a dictionary or looking something up in a grammar. Hopefully there will be automatic procedures that will take us from the documentation to the typological generalization, or at least to an adequate grammatical characterization of the phenomenon in the language in question.
How little we know about the acquisition of indigenous languages, including languages of Argentina, by children. There is a little bit of work on the acquisition of Quechua, but guess what? It's Peru, it's not Argentina. So that's something that young people could sort of start working on a bit more.
Me parece muy interesante investigación psicolingüística experimental también para tratar de diferenciar las ideas cognitivas de gramática de construcciones y las ideas cognitivas que salen de lingüística generativa.
As Chomsky has emphasized, it bears also on questions about the evolution of the human language faculty. That in itself is a very interesting question that's hard to make progress on, but we never know.
If you have a taste for neuroscience, writing is a really interesting place to go to, because writers use their brains and they use their whole neural systems, including out to the fingers. It's one of the most difficult and complicated things people do. People with different sets of abilities notably learn to write in different ways. The kind of writing we do relates to the kind of thinking we do. Now, some people have the hypothesis that the thinking comes first and the writing is an epiphenomena. I tend to think that they're highly interactive and it's more like 90% the other way, and that the more advanced forms of thought have embedded within them highly literate practices.
La otra dimensión que ya mencioné es la relación con cognición. Entonces, en lingüística, ustedes ya saben de cognitive linguistics en teorías de metáfora, pero es una área muy, muy pequeña de la cognición. Además, muy poco en la psicología de hoy en día. Sobre discurso hay miles de libros, sobre conocimiento también. Y yo tenía que escribir un libro que combina las cosas. Es absurdo, tiene que ser mucho más. Y casi no hay. ¿De acuerdo? Entonces, siempre hay establecer relaciones entre las disciplinas que me parece muy importante.
How to concretely and substantially connect the results that you can get in one discipline to make it relevant for another.
In my mind, it makes sense for us to start going out there and talking to other fields. For example, neurolinguistics, animal communication, ethology, and primatology. These are fields that we can actually, be related to.
Yo creo que parte del reto de que este tipo de colaboraciones o de crossovers se lleven a cabo depende de que las instituciones, los gobiernos decidan apostar de manera seria.
Now, often linguistic theories have their own specifics for every level of analysis. So you have like a minimalist program for syntax, an optimality theory for phonology and so on. But it's not clear whether that theoretical framework can cover not only one level, but also the other level. So there is a more integrated view is necessary.
It would be more a question for somebody who sets policy, who decides who gets grants and who doesn't. And I'm not that kind of person. So I usually just follow my nose, and then it's pot luck. If that topic becomes important, it becomes important. And if it's not so important, then it just goes under.